The other day I came forward with a really important topic, that of narcissistic abuse. It was a coming out of sorts for me, where I was sharing with the world my own struggle through narcissistic abuse and my journey to heal thereafter. I was able to share with you part one of an amazing interview with owner and founder Kim Saeed of Let Me Reach. We talked very candidly about the aspect of love addiction and why it may actually get you to be attracted to a narcissist in the first place. Today, I'm going to share with you a very open and candid conversation that we have about some of the negative emotions that we experience while we are in a relationship with a narcissist. The fear, the anger, the shame, the guilt, and why it may keep us trapped, why we may overlook some of these negative behaviors of narcissists and not move past these relationships. I want to share with you from the other video that I wasn't completely honest with you. What do I mean by that? I am here to transform lives. I am here to tell a story. And yet I edited the very beginning of that video to almost hide or mask the feelings that I truly experienced when I was videoing that intro. I want to share that with you now. I decided that I wanted to come forward and talk about a really important topic. And I lost my voice. For some reason, I wasn't able to speak. I didn't feel that I was the one who was going to come forward with this. But as you can see, there's ever a reason that I should come forward with this. It's to heal. And most importantly, to help you heal. As you saw within that video clip, I was definitely overtaken by emotion, and I knew that if I was going to continue to speak on this topic, I had to be completely open, authentic, and transparent with you about the real road to recovery. It is not impossible, but it does require daily work. And today, I want to share with you part two of that interview with Kim Saeed, where we are talking about these emotions. We will talk about shame and guilt. We will talk about why we may still continue to try to overlook all the negative attributes of that narcissist and stay, and why we fear being alone. You don't want to miss this. Stay tuned. Welcome, everyone, to the Inner Revolution Show. I am Dr. Renee Mudre, owner and founder of Transcendent Heart Life Coaching. And as you know, the platform of the Inner Revolution Radio is to go within your inner landscape, to examine those aspects that you truly want to redesign. This is all about identity reconstruction and reshaping and rewriting your life to have the best life you possibly can. And today I actually have Kim, the owner and founder of Let Me Reach, come on and talk very specifically about her work in relation to healing, other relationship dynamics that we talk about here, and more specifically, we're going to examine some aspects pertaining to narcissism.
But there are some definite steps involved in leaving this kind of relationship. And there's a bit of a formula that people should probably know about in their own recovery journeys.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine that many people are at varying points. I would imagine some people who really struggle to leave such a relationship would worry about safety if we're thinking about basic needs or finances, things of that nature. Whereas others who might be a little bit more comfortable or, fortunate in that area, maybe at a different aspect in the program of needing to work on the healing, right? Just getting into the self-care. I know for me, a big part was learning how to slow down. I was used to going a million miles a minute as a professor, as a mother. Oh, and then the impact on your emotional well-being, the burnout that you experience is just so immense. And so I would imagine you've probably heard that before as well.
I have. Well, because a lot of us are that way, being empaths, and many of us have the codependent traits, so we have to fix everything in everyone's lives and things like that. But that's exactly why we end up with adrenal burnout and chronic
Mhm.
fatigue and fibromyalgia, for those very reasons. And so it is important to slow down, to learn how to start saying no, and really incorporate and be mindful about self-care.
In this next segment of the interview, Kim and I are talking very candidly about codependency. I had an amazing revelation in my own therapy and my own treatment that I was codependent, that I had an immense fear of being alone, of being abandoned, which had stemmed from my childhood, of which I brought into my adult relationships and my adult experiences. I open up very candidly about the impact that the codependency had on me throughout the relationship and thereafter. That I wanted a relationship because I feared not being in one, if that makes sense. That was just so powerful, so powerful. And I hope that people who, if they're not necessarily in narcissistic relationships, just toxic relationships of any kind, or moving out of a relationship, even if it was semi-healthy, there's still maybe that codependent connection that you have to find somebody right away because you feel immediately uncomfortable, right, in that space afterwards.
Yes, yes. And that is a huge indicator that you have some issues that need to be worked with, is not wanting to be alone. And that means that we're afraid to be alone with ourselves. And so that's why we have to dig down into, why are we afraid to be alone? We're looking for someone to project images to our subconscious minds, how we want how we want to perceive ourselves. So part of that is, when you are in a new relationship and you're having all that chemistry and the fun, that makes us feel like we're worthy, and that we're not only worthy of love, but just of someone's attention. But that is not always a good indicator that you're in a good relationship, as we both know.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
very healthy to spend time alone. I think a lot of that, Renee, has to do with the fact that we've lost our inner identity. We don't know who we are anymore. And so we need someone else to show us who we are. And that's why part of the reason we're so desperate to get back into another relationship.
Yeah, this is powerful. And I'm reminded of another interview you've done in the past where you were talking very specifically about how sometimes we lose our identity because we take on the identity of what the abusive partner wanted for us, or what we believed that was. And that was another real quality lesson in my life. In that, there was also this thing that happens in relationships where we'll talk ourselves out of the bad stuff that starts showing itself. And we start to push it away, and we're like, oh, but he's okay here. And we ignore those signs that that relationship is not going in the direction we want it to, because we have a fantasy, we have a belief that what we want to happen will happen. And even when it isn't happening, we keep trying to put that off. And you said something that was so huge, and I hope you could just speak on this really quickly for me, was it wasn't that we were in love with the narcissist. We were in love with the ideal or the fantasy of what the relationship could have been like, and those kinds of things.
And so we do form a fantasy in our minds. And so then it becomes a story that we tell ourselves. And because we are empathic, compassionate individuals, we hang on to that fantasy. Well, everyone deserves, a second chance, and I'm not perfect either. And so basically we're denying the red flags that are right in front of our faces.
Yeah.
So it's not only a sign of love addiction, it's also a sign of trauma bonding. When you are having very conflicting emotions about an individual, for example, they have hurt you numerous times, they've cheated on you, maybe they've been physically abusive, and yet you're still telling yourself, well, they're not all bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a story that we tell ourselves. And so that is why I talk a lot about reality-based thinking. And it's hard to do. It's really hard to do when you're traumatized. We literally cannot think cognitively or make rational decisions when we're traumatized. And so because we stay in that constant fight or flight mode with a narcissistic individual, we stay in a fantasy world, basically.
Yeah.
And that's just part of it, because obviously there's the biochemical addiction and, the sort of Stockholm syndrome that
Right.
is involved. But yeah, it's a story we tell ourselves, and we don't want to let go of that fantasy. And that's, again, another sign of trauma bonding as well.
And what you had said earlier is so fitting here as well, that it's hard to come to this space, this reality in our own lives that this is happening, because in the first instance, it feels shameful. It feels a bit disheartening to think that we could have been in such a relationship. We allowed ourselves to partake in this situation, or let someone abuse us or mistreat us. And I love what you said earlier, and this is why I love your coaching method so much, that you come from a heart space, right? You come from that heart space of be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, nurture yourself, instead of, some of these camps out there, which are just ready to go out and have a Salem witch trial on the narcissist, which,
Right.
okay, to each his own. But honestly, I don't think in the short run, being angry and being frustrated, certainly as an educational psychologist, I do know the value of those emotions. And I would much rather have somebody be in anger than to be in despair and depression, because at least it's elevating and moving one towards a goal. But then if they get stuck in that anger and that frustration and that hatred and that inability to forgive self, then they just get stuck.
Basically, forgiveness should have an expiration date.
Wow.
Because it does turn into a form of enabling after a while. And I was not able to see that while I was in the relationship. I only recognized that in hindsight. And so even though I just said that it's a form of enabling, it's not to shame anyone. It's just to say, are you making excuses for someone who continues to hurt you and who will continue to hurt you?
Absolutely. And I think what's significant here is the forgiveness should be more towards self, in my opinion, versus the abuser, because again, we get preached at many times in therapeutic methods, you need to forgive, but cognitively we absorb that and think that means to forgive our abuser. And many people aren't comfortable doing that or ready to do that. And I'm okay with that with individuals. I say, no, I'm never going to ask you to forgive a father who sexually molested you. That's not something you ever need to do, but you do need to forgive why you shame yourself, why you felt you either put yourself in that situation or didn't get yourself out or something like that. And I love that you mentioned about the journaling, because that was a tool I used as well. I remember, and I didn't remember this either, I don't remember doing it. And I sat down and listed all the reasons and all the pain that this person caused me in my life. I had 179 bullets when I counted them up. And then I made another page and said, how is my life better just in one day without this person? And again, I had like 70 some bullets. And then I went back to, what value did this person bring to my life? There was nothing. There was nothing on the page. And again, I don't remember doing it, but I remember reading that somewhere, somehow, to do that activity. And that was powerful, because whenever I had a moment where I thought about going back, or I got weak, and like you said, started to think about, enabling the process, it was easy to just say, no, I'm not going to do that again, as much as everything else suffered. Thank you for watching this interview with Kim Saeed, owner and founder of Let Me Reach. As I said in the intro, I know that this can be a difficult process, that a lot of emotions are experienced, and we may feel like we are stuck, but we are not stuck. There are many individuals out there. There are many methods and strategies and programs available. And if you need additional assistance looking for a program, please go ahead to my website at transcendentheart.com and leave me a message. And I will be happy to provide you with some insight in how to find some direction in this process. In the next video, Kim and I will be talking about the impact of narcissistic abuse on the children. You do not want to miss this. This is Dr. Renee of Transcendent Heart Life Coaching from the bottom of my heart. I look forward to the next video and to talking to you soon.